Hello, my name is Matthew, and I read Eugénie Grandet by Balzac, and this is translated by Sylvia Raphael, and it's a marvelous, wonderful early novel by Balzac. It's a short thing, it's under 200 pages. It was written in, I believe, 1833, and that was on my mind kind of throughout the book. It's nearly 200 years old, and the story and the characters and the format of the novel, the structure of the novel, felt so modern. There's carriages and candlesticks instead of lights and things like that, but the humanity in the characters, the way that people were interacting and the thought processes just felt so modern and relatable. There was hardly any distance between my reading and the voice coming off of the pages. And a lot of that is largely due to the provincial setting. We're out in the French countryside. The novel is primarily set in a single household, and it's a family drama. We have the father and mother, and they have a daughter, Eugenie, and then there's a housemaid. And we have other characters coming and going, but the relationship between them is so well realized. It just makes you feel like these things are just still happening. So we have Monsieur or Pierre Grandet, and he's the patriarch of the family, and he's a miser. His distinctive character trait, the for as realized as a lot of these characters are, they are they also have exaggerated characteristics, and so the father's miserly, and everything that he does is going to revolve around greed. The mother is saintly, and so all of her actions are selfless and meek and mild, and so on. And Pierre Grandet is a wine grower and a businessman, a landowner who has a wife and daughter and has amassed a fortune. And to some mythological height, according to the town, they believe that not only is he the richest man in town, he might well very be one of the richest men in France, even richer than anybody in Paris, as a single individual. And he's constantly saving money, cutting corners. The house that they live in is run as if they're completely destitute. The mother and daughter are stuck in this like torturous situation where they're not putting a fire on if it's cold. There's only a certain times of the year that the father will allow a fire. There's rations on egg and rations on milk and sugar and wine. They're eating small portions of bread or a little bit of fruit. And they don't know, Eugenie doesn't know any other sort of life. She really doesn't recognize that they have any sort of wealth at all. She would just think that they are peasants. And the way that the father, Grandet, operates his businesses, he's seen as this ruthless cold-hearted, cold-blooded tyrant in the business world. He'll sabotage the whole town's supply of wine to make a really great business deal with the Netherlands and enrich himself at the sake of a whole town's livelihood, the whole town's business. Even still, he's, if not respected, feared and respected in this town and in the family. He's not entirely, at least at first, an evil villain. And there's these two households, two families that live in this village. Eugenie is now of marrying age, and they want to, these two different families want to court Pierre Grandet. And they'll have dinner parties, they come over, and there are humorous parts in this story. It's so much of it is set inside these interior settings. Everything is lit by candlelight or fireplace, and you really get this rich, through the descriptions, this rich atmosphere of everything lit by fire, that chiaroscuro, drastic contrast of light and dark through these rooms. And if there's a knock at the door or there's an errand to be run, since he's so miserly, during a dinner party there will be a single candle on the table apart from the atmospheric lighting from the fireplace at the other end of the room. And with the single candle, there will be a knock at the door, and Pierre will pick up the candlestick and walk out of the room, leaving an entire dinner party in the dark. And there's a surprise arrival. It's going to be Pierre Grandet's nephew, Charles. And so we find out that Pierre Grandet also has a brother that lives in Paris, who at first we're led to believe is also incredibly rich. And he's sent his son Charles to visit the French countryside. And Charles wants to make a big, splashy impression on this little town and also the family. So he's just dripping in gold, wants to have everything that he's wearing to be the most luxurious, the most decadent. He's just dressed up as a dandy. And he's handsome, seems to be charming, relatively polite, oblivious, because he has been swimming in a life of wealth and luxury and doesn't really understand country living or the life of a peasant. And he arrives. This sets off so much of the romantic tension, but also much larger plot points throughout the book. Eugenie falls in love. She thinks that he's handsome. They're cousins, but for whatever reason, in 19th century French books and English, that never stopped anybody. And we have the families, these two families that are battling for Eugenie's heart, but also the consent from the father for Eugenie's heart. And now there's another player in the game. The mother and the housemaid, Eugenie, are all enamored by this young man, Charles. And he has a letter, a sealed letter to give to Pierre Grandet, and it's from the father, Pierre's, Monsieur's brother. And in the letter, he reads it in front of the dinner party, silently. And the father, the brother, is bankrupt and ruined. This is essentially a suicide note. He's going to kill himself. And not only is he going to kill himself, he's going to shoot himself in the head, and he's leaving his son with his brother in the hope that he'll take care of him. He's leaving him penniless and has no idea the real reason that he's there. There's going to be a big news announcement the next day, but this is going to be the last good night's sleep that Charles is going to have. The rest of the household, the family, are oblivious to this. Monsieur reads it, and kind of like blood-curdlingly calm, maybe even a little bit of a smile, he just folds the letter up, puts it in his pocket, asks about what's going on with dinner and the arrangements of Charles's guest room. Doesn't give any emotional reaction, and instead these miserly, greedy wheels are turning in his head. Eugenie and the mother and the housemaid, throughout the night, the next morning, they are looking to have these little extravagances. So they want to have extra sugar on the table. They're going to have an egg for breakfast. They're going to have cream with their coffee. They're going to have coffee. All these things. Eugenie is just sort of swept up with first love. There's so many descriptions, terrific descriptions of a young girl falling in love, or being swept up with the feeling of romance, a budding love. And Charles comes down barely in the morning. He comes down at 11 o'clock in the morning and talks about how he woke up early. Normally he would wake up at noon. So he's like this alien creature for these people that are living this impoverished lifestyle. The father finds out that they're spending all of this money. He's so like viperously aware of every little thing in the house. He's running it like a prison warden, and he pulls the son aside. He pulls Charles aside and explains, "Your father is dead. He shot himself in the head. You are now penniless. I'm going to give you a little bit of startup money, but I'm sending you off to the Indies, and you're going away, and you can fend for yourself." And told as brusquely and coldly as that, it just throws Charles upside down. He runs into his guest bedroom, wailing in the night. The house is in turmoil and distress, learning of this news. Monsieur Grandet is scheming. He's coming up with these plans. Decides, well, maybe he can figure out a way to reverse or change the bankruptcy. So instead of having his dead brother's businesses go bankrupt, maybe he can liquidate the assets and turn that into a profit. And we get this great series of scenes with a little bit of hand waving of Monsieur Grandet amassing wealth and being clever with business schemes. He has these two families. One is sort of like has someone that's a lawyer in the family. The other one is a president of the county of the family, and he's pitting them against each other because they know they want to win the heart of his daughter Eugenie, and he's using them, like sending them off to Paris, acting as a liaison for Monsieur Grandet, and with all this hand waving, he's exchanging his gold that's at a certain market value for like government bonds, and he almost like overnight triples his wealth. He's now like a multi-millionaire. He's like $10 million by doing all these things. And one of the things we find out is each birthday and Christmas, Eugenie will get a gold coin, a real gold coin. It could be like a Portuguese gold coin or a Spanish coin or a French Napoleon. And it's this ritual that they have each anniversary for either birthday or Christmas. Eugenie will take her little bag out and present it to her father. It's in a way like an allowance, and he'll drop another gold coin in. And Eugenie, who knows that Charles is going to be going off, decides that she's going to give her life savings, her little stash of gold. She has no sense of money or fortune or wealth. She just knows that she's in love and she's going to try to help this person, like an unrequited love. And there's an exchange. She gives him the gold. There's an emotional scene. In return, he gives her this the golden case, and promises that he's going to return the value of the gold with interest. And off he goes. Eugenie is distraught and depressed, and there's this loss that comes through her. She's gone from being a girl to a young lady. She's matured very quickly. And we start building up, there's pressure building. It's incredible. So we're just going to have a scene where the father finds out that Eugenie has given her money away. She doesn't have it anymore. And that's what's going to happen in this little family drama. And it builds up to such an incredible, it's a powder keg when it goes off. When the father finds out what happened to his gold, and he's at this point a cartoonish exaggeration of a greedy miser. When he has business dealings, he has a wart that twitches and moves and emotes. All the while, he's now so ridiculously enriched that any sort of this little pot of gold should relatively not shouldn't mean anything to him. And he finds out. She announces, "I don't have it anymore," and she's now being obstinate. It's my money. You gave it to me. If it's not mine to do as I please, how is it mine? He's rearing up like a horse 10 feet away from a cannon shot. The house is roaring with anger. We have those 18th century, 19th century conventions where the distress is going to ultimately kill the mother, and the rage is going to kill the father, and things like that. He sends her off into her room, imprisons her, says, "You're not coming out." She won't tell him where the money went. He knows, but she won't tell him. And she's been reduced to rations of bread and water. It, like a wildfire spreads through the town. Everybody's realizing that the father is imprisoned his young girl. It's scandalous. And these two families are still there, kind of vying back and forth. And the lawyer is talking to Monsieur Grandet. And the longer that Eugenie has been imprisoned in her room, the sicker the mother has been getting. And the lawyer explains to Monsieur Grandet that if she dies, by law, French law at the time, however that works out, half of the inheritance, so half of his wealth, will go to his daughter. if she dies, he's going to lose 50% of his wealth. And all of a sudden now, he cares about his daughter, he cares about his mother, he wants her to get better, he gets her out of her locked room, she can eat whatever she likes. And the mother dies. Eventually, the father dies as well. Eugenie is just orphaned. She's now in her early 30s. Hasn't lived a life. It's this really tragic story of a young girl that's powerless. She thought that she had a relatively pleasant life. She was so naive, innocent, just innocent to the surroundings around her, and finding that it's just wasting away, and she's lonely and unhappy. She's also incredibly wealthy, has no idea of the meaning of having a fortune. We get a follow-up from Charles, who's gone off, and he's done well for himself as well, and it's heartbreaking, but just despicable. He turns into like an evil, heartless, hardened, horrible person. He gets into slave trading, and there's no consideration for anything other than money and social standing. He wants to have a grand arrival. He wants to have a grand return back in Paris. Should be the son of a ruined man. His own name disgraced. He wants to come back, and he does these things. He amasses wealth just through horrible means. It's so depressing to read what he goes through and what he chooses to do in order to get what he wants. Eugenie, in the back of her mind, always just yearned for a letter to arrive in the mail. She believed that he was off like a fairy tale, doing good, all of the things that you imagine the person you love is doing. Think of the best of them. And he does make a fortune through unfortunate means. He does come back to Paris, and he does send a letter to Eugenie, saying, I'm returning the money, I'm speaking to you very formally. I know I made a promise to you, but there's a young girl in France, in Paris, that since I have my little bit of money, I'll be able to marry her and make a little bit more money, and it's going to be good for my social standing, and I hope that you can understand all these things. Meanwhile, the dead Monsieur Grandet, when he went to Paris to undo the bankruptcies of the father, I don't quite understand it, but he didn't actually pay off the debts. He just moved money around and kind of swindled people into enriching himself. And so Charles is in this dilemma where he has a chance to marry into some sort of aristocracy, but that family won't allow it if he still has a smear on his family name. And he's writing all this to Eugenie. And she turns to one of the families that are still courting her and says, I'll marry you. I have conditions. There's going to be no romance between us. It'll strictly be a legal marriage. I also want you to go to Paris. Eugenie, meanwhile, is now really one of the wealthiest people in the country. She's still eating bread and water and darning her socks, but she's just sitting on a mountain of gold. So the lawyer goes off, has these legal meetings, and just in a day, the real cash money or gold coins pays off like millions of dollars or francs of Charles's father and the family's debts. Just pays everything off, just in one swoop. The lawyer goes to Charles, explains this, like, you want to marry this girl because she has status and wealth, and Eugenie paid off all the debts, so you can go do that. You didn't want to marry her because she's sort of like this nitwit peasant. So she paid off the millions of debt. Now you can go marry the rich person. And Charles is like, she paid off the $3 million or something. Yeah, well, how much does she have? And he goes, well, she had 19 million. Now she only has 17 million. And he goes, but now I'm gonna go marry her. And so, like, it's tragic. It's an incredibly tragic, emotional, like, heartrending story. It's sad, but this conclusion, having these storylines come down and having this irony, this really satisfying conclusion where Charles is getting what he wants. He's so unhappy about it. He realizes that he didn't see the whole picture, and he's not gonna ever have it. It's that moment is so satisfying. Like, how much does she have? Really great ending. Really terrific novel by Balzac. Lots more to talk about, but that's kind of like the story, and there's no better way for me. There's no better way to spending beautiful afternoons than reading a French novel by one of the greatest writers of his century, Honoré de Balzac. This is Eugénie Grandet. And I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me know. In any event, thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like. Let me know if you've read the book, or what you think of the book. If you have any thoughts on what I had to say about the book. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.